Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. It is very exciting to have you here today and to take this opportunity to talk to you all about the triangle, how to optimize your Apple ads, Google ads, your UA channels in order to achieve the best goals and targets that you're looking for, while of course focusing on that very tricky market of non-brand. As mentioned, I'm the lead global customer solutions manager. I have been working in UA and marketing attribution now for about 8 years, which trying to do the math on that this morning was a lot more challenging than I would like to admit, but that might be my age showing on. And I'm currently using at least 3 AI tools daily, which does mean I believe I'm at least a competent AI specialist, but I actually would push myself more into the expert AI user category. And I am Spreadsheets' resident podcaster, playlist maker, all-round geek, as you can see from the photo on the screen here. The honest answer is yes, I am that nerdy. That's exactly what I look like. As you can imagine, I don't actually have a podcast, but I do certainly look like that I should have one. As mentioned, I'm going to talk a little bit around who we are as a business and talk a little bit around what we do. And what that is ultimately we are developing and building app growth. We do this through a series of solutions and through a series of products that ultimately just drive app growth, be that through optimizing, automating things like your Apple Ads campaigns, all the way through to exceptional professional services and technologies around ASO for everything like Google, Snapchat, Pinterest, TikTok, and supporting well over 800 global clients. I'd like to add the well over myself, if we may not have included it in today's graphic. But without further ado, I want to talk a little bit about the hidden growth of non-brand. When we talk about growth in UA channels, most of us start with brand campaigns. We focus on that they scale quickly, they deliver solid results and returns. But the truth is, the reality of sort of the hidden growth engine, the real place that you're going to find new opportunities and new space to excel and grow your brand, is the one that is often the one people stress about or sort of ignore because it's the problematic challenge in the process, and that is non-brand campaigns. We are talking, and I'll specify when we refer to non-brand, we could be talking about competitor, we could be talking about more generic language, effectively any keyword that isn't your brand name or one of your brand products, right? The catch is they don't behave the same way as brand. They have their own sort of goals, their own targets, their own market intent, and ultimately require a much more unique strategy that not only requires a bit more of a focused approach, keyword to keyword, something that you are probably very comfortable doing in brand, but requiring you doing that on scale where it is not uncommon for me to sit down with a customer to find that they have 10, 20, 30 plus thousand keywords potentially in their non-brand campaigns and simply don't have the time to obviously manage and automate and get the most out of those. So we're going to be focusing on that, what is probably the lion's share of the amount of keywords in your account, but would not surprise me to hear from many of you today that is probably one of the less focused or less important. Before we go any further, there are 2 sort of polls that we're going to run today. In today's session, they're going to be going on throughout the entirety of the sessions today. And I would like to take the opportunity to ask the team if they wouldn't mind deploying the very first poll for me. What is the biggest challenge when it comes to non-brand scaling? Is it attribute accuracy, creative iteration, keyword saturation, or ultimately just really measuring that ROI? So we'll take a few moments just to let the people in the session today answer those questions, and we'll have a quick look at the review. The one that I often find is a case of it's typically measurement, but then also scaling. People trying to find how they can get the most out of these keywords, but not able to sit down and look at each keyword individually and ultimately create a strategy for those. So that's the one that we typically see. I typically see day to day, but would love to get an idea of the attendees today, what they're seeing. I'm going to say that's probably been a good 45-ish seconds. So if you don't mind, can we see the results of the poll? And it is even Stevens across the board. Excellent. Okay, so the honest answer is there's lots of different challenges, and that's not a surprise here during App Growth Week. Today's session is going to be focusing more about sort of the optimization when it comes to measurement of ROI and also how to sort of deal with those keyword saturation pieces. However, there are some great sessions that we've run and we're running this week that will look at other elements like creativity, iteration. So do check out those other sessions later today. That's really interesting insights. Excellent. Thank you. Without further ado, let's actually look at the problem that we're talking about here today. And that comes down to, I'm just going to press the button and hope it works. There we go. Brand versus non-brand. What are the core differences that we're seeing here? Well, it seems straightforward enough to say, well, the reality is that these things are looking and are treating your market in different ways. And to be dramatic, it's two different realities. Brand is tight, focused, predictable. Non-brand is a bit more broad, fast moving, more complex. What is going to work today may not work tomorrow, next week, next month. And ultimately, your brand campaigns, unless you launch new products, you launch new features, they're going to be evergreen. They're going to be the same 5, 10, 15 keywords. Whereas your non-brand, you're going to have to focus on how do you expand it? How do you identify and find what's working? How do you then also identify what's not? So it's a much more complex approach in that sense. You're working with more keywords, more likely more competition because generic terminology can apply to multiple industries simultaneously. And there's a lot of tactics that work for brands that simply just do not work for non-brand. And understanding that these should be treated separately and they should ultimately have different strategies, different ideologies, will ultimately result in better results and better targeted outcomes, giving you better ROI, better achievements, and ultimately hitting your goals more effectively. Now, this is a question I get asked all the time. Why am I struggling with non-brand? Why is non-brand not working? And it often feels like there's a resist scale in what's going on. And it's not because there isn't opportunity in non-brand. I firmly believe every business that is in today's sessions, every customer that I deal with, there is opportunity and money to be made in non-brand campaigns. But it's about how to move fast, and it ultimately involves more resources, more focus, more time that you may not necessarily be able to offer on a day-to-day basis. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. But instead of 5 or 10 keywords, you're dealing with hundreds, maybe even thousands, and the intent is less predictable. So your performance is going to fluctuate more, auctions shift more quickly, the competition is going to be very intense. And if you try to do it the same way, it's going to end up having this not have the same results. So the long story short of it is if you try to treat these campaigns as exactly the same effort, even down to how you scale them, how you spend your money with them, you are going to slightly fall on your face. So we are going to talk a little bit about what you should be doing there. And the first part we mentioned is Ariana gave a little bit of a tease earlier. We're going to talk about the brand triangle. Now, the brand triangle is something that you guys are probably very familiar with, something that you guys have heard maybe in a slightly different iteration. This is how I describe it. Every keyword sits inside a triangle. You spend, your CPA, and your share of voice, your market share. If you push one corner, the other two move. There's no way around it. It's the reality set by the market, reality set by the auctions, set by your competitors, depending on what they're bidding, set by the trends or what is currently popular, what is viral, what is been talked about online. All of these different elements all impact the triangle. It's just a market reality that these things will happen. And scaling isn't about bending the triangle to your will. The strategy here is about understanding where you want the triangle to sit, where you want to sit inside said triangle, and how you position your strategy accordingly. By understanding that by pushing spend, you're likely to increase share of voice, but increasing share of voice is also likely to then increase potentially CPA. All of these elements, understanding that this will then fluctuate how that triangle behaves, is the key logic to then apply to non-brand. Taking that a little bit of a step further, the market is something that shapes the triangle, not you. It's marked by competition. It's marked by auction dynamics. It's dictated by strategy position with market rules. And ultimately, the target triangle often is not the actual triangle. What you are dictating as what you would like to be your target is a completely reasonable thing that you'd like to work towards, but that triangle is not yours to shape. It's created by the market, competition, intent, and ultimately where automation and AI play a crucial role in this is they get to bridge that gap, that helping you get closer to the outcomes you want without brute forcing the system, taking each triangle as it stands and pushing it towards a more logical end. So, sorry, this was the slide I was meant to move to, but this to reiterate those points. The target triangle may not be the reality of where you are, dictated by everything you see in that first slide there: competition, intent, auction dynamics, and then you need to then create a system that is smart adjusting, smart adapting these triangles to ultimately work towards that goal. To do so, and I press the slide button again, when the market moves. So let's use Black Friday as an example. This is one that's going to be very fast approaching in the next sort of week or two, but something to bear in mind and be very aware of. During Black Friday, let's say you're running a shopping app, an e-commerce application. Maybe you sell tech, you sell any sort of product on an e-commerce basis. What's going to happen over the next sort of few weeks is you're going to see the bids are going to rise sharply. If you take a keyword like Black Friday sale, in early November, search volume for that term surged. Dozens of advertisers pile into the auction. They're working to maintain their own visibility, while you also need to maintain that you want to defend your market share while also remaining competitive, which likely means raising bids, which then is also going to drive up your cost per acquisition. After the event, the demand cools off. That triangle will then naturally start to contract again because you don't need to spend as much to achieve as much because there's less competition in the market. And that timely example of having to adjust your triangle accordingly based on things like market trends ultimately is going to result in you as a business having slightly higher, more expensive months, slightly lower, cheaper months. And that triangle target that you're working towards ultimately having to be adjusted and amended based upon those market trends as well. So while Black Friday is a timely example, the same logic applies to any app facing any seasonal challenges. Travel apps before the summer, fitness and wellness apps in January, New Year, New You, or financial apps during the tax season. Any period of intensified bidding stretches your triangle the exact same way. And the automation that we can start putting in place to actually respond and react to that can really help you keep it the shape that you are working towards, or ultimately a shape that's more acceptable for you as a business. So let's talk about what you used to do. Traditional keyword management versus against non-brand growth. It was reactive, not real time. Traditional keyword management isn't just about built for the pace of having to work with non-brand. It runs on cycles, weekly or daily adjustments, and the market is moving in real time. What is appropriate at 9 a.m. may not be appropriate for 6 p.m. And the market is moving very, very quickly. And you need to obviously adapt and respond accordingly. As a keyword volume grows, the gap between what's happening and what's being acted upon gets wider. When a keyword becomes more popular, market trends start moving against that keyword more rapidly. The requirements to then respond to that market also increases. If your competitors are pushing really hard, you need to start pushing really hard. That's how this reality is. That lag translates into ultimately lost opportunities. Real-time optimization flips our dynamic. Instead of reacting, you're staying in step with the market, and it means thousands of minutes are saved and performances that compounds. Now, the reality being is I've deployed automation, dozens and possibly at this point, hundreds of automations for clients around the world. And to be honest, answer is it is very possible to save, and this is an example I use every day, working with a customer over 30 days, creating automation and optimization strategies using AI tools, smart bidding, and condition-based automation, all bundled together, allowed a customer over a 30-day window to save 42,000 worth of minutes. Now, for those of you who are quick with maths, you'll realize that's more minutes than there is physically available in a 30-day window. So you're going to say, how does that work? Let me simplify this. Automation, AI bidding, smart bidding can move faster, stronger, and do physically more than any human could do in the same window. to the degree that in a 30-day window, we were able to save what would have taken a team 42,000 minutes, which would have meant effectively having 3 employees working round the clock, 8 hours a day, non-stop, in order to do the exact same work that one automation tool can do in literally a few clicks. So the reality being is that's why you need to be more dynamic, you need to be more effective. If you're not utilizing any form of optimization or any form of automation right now, you need to really seriously consider looking at it, because the reality of the market is you won't be, but your competitors sure as hell will be. And with that, let's talk about how AI unlocks non-brand growth. Effectively, think of it as it's the always-on performance marketer. What we think about scaling non-brand, the challenge isn't spending opportunities or spotting opportunities, it's keeping up with how quickly things are changing. What works today may not work tomorrow. And that's where AI completely changes the game. It acts as your timeless and tireless optimizer. It works faster, smarter, and quicker than anyone can. And it means that you can do more with less. And that's the important piece that we need to reinforce here. With that in mind, it's continuously adjusting, reallocating budget, reallocating bids, fine-tuning your campaign strategy, without having to wait for what would be your internal next optimization cycle. And this isn't theory. One advertiser I mentioned has done this, and my goal and my target is my sort of record is 42,000 minutes. Right now, I'm working with 30 plus different accounts, and they all have automation that in the last 7 days have saved them minimum of 20 to 30 hours. And that's in the last 7 days. This is not a theory, it's a reality. It's a very, very powerful tool. And to reiterate, it's the way the market is moving. So it's a very valuable thing to bear in mind. It's not just a fad, it's the reality of what this market is working towards. And to that end, find the key is also a great way of finding keywords that you're currently also not working on. We have several AI features within our Spitmetrics technologies that allow you to not only adjust and optimize bids on your keywords, but also find and optimize keywords that you haven't even considered yet. So we have a great collection of technologies that ultimately find, automate, optimize, deliver the target, that perfect triangle that you're looking for, and then immediately continue to then drive those keywords. And again, it's moving faster because those keywords might be the golden goose this week. They might be the golden goose for the next 30 days, but actually they might lose market intent, they might lose market interest, and actually 2 months from now, they may be your lowest spender with your lowest CPA performance criteria compared to where they were. That's the reality of non-brand campaigns, and these tools will find and ultimately identify common typos, identify translations where they should be used, and just effectively give you the best version of your campaigns for the best triangle, for the best circumstances, which is right now. This is my lovely little graph that I am very, very excited that we've included, and I just want to talk about a little bit more about that. We've talked about this triangle repeatedly, and I don't want anyone to go away going, okay, what is my business's triangle? Because actually it's more intricate than that. When you look at your Google Ads campaign, your Apple Ads campaign, your TikTok advertising strategy, all of this triangle logic applies regardless of the UA channel. And it's not channel to channel, it's keyword to keyword. It's placement to placement. It's anytime you can individually identify a singular asset, let's use keyword as an example or search term, that then has an individual triangle. And when you fluctuate the spend on that particular triangle, you push up that spend to increase that share of voice, that will then have a direct impact on your CPA. So what you're working towards is perfecting the triangle for you, for your business, your brand, for that keyword. From there, it would then be, the next step would be then, okay, I've achieved it with this triangle, and then adding the next triangle on, which is the next keyword. And you repeat that until you end up with this beautiful mosaic of all of your keywords having their perfected, maximized potential, the perfect triangle for you, for your business, for each keyword, to then have this mosaic that is ultimately your optimization strategy and your bid strategy. This is what I firmly believe is what every business should be looking at, because we often end up saying, right, we need our campaigns to perform, we need our non-brands to perform, we need our competitors to perform. And my answer to them will always be, cool, let's take each keyword and then let's identify the triangle that they need to achieve in each case. So I absolutely love this graphic because what is on the right, in my opinion, is the demonstration of what is the perfect non-brand campaign. And that is where all triangles have been perfectly positioned for each individual keyword. So for those of you in the call today, what does that mean for you? Who are you? You are my mosaic designer. Your job is not about just pushing levers and to designing these outcomes. You set the CPA targets, you define what your desired share of voice is, you align your budget, you outline what that CPA goal needs to be with those sort of different criteria and lines marked up. And then you ultimately I would recommend utilizing things like automation to execute within those sort of guardrails. Instead of living inside spreadsheets and bid adjustments, you focus on shaping the bigger picture. How do I make this the mosaic that I want to see? How do I make sure that this is what's right for my business? That's ultimately what's right for my brand. We also then have a nice 5-step process to kind of get you to that goal. Unfortunately, the presentation is taking a moment to get there. There we go. You start with your benchmarking. You identify what that triangle looks like. What is that perfect triangle for your brand, for your business, for that keyword? And then you start to create that set of keywords that you want to achieve that sort of triangle. From there, once you have optimized and created that smaller set, that pilot, you then expand intelligently. Find keywords that work for you, that ultimately achieve the goals that you need. Once that model has stabilized, an important step here, and it's why it's in orange, prune mercilessly, be ruthless. The keywords that don't work, push them afar. Those that are doing well, double down. And actually, you need to make sure that you are pushing those strong performers that are working right now higher and higher, and scale back the ones that are not. And importantly, it's about knowing what's right and what's working right now. I just saw one of our great members of our team has just shared our benchmarking reports. That is so invaluable when you're looking at that initial step with Triangle, because actually, yes, you may be told, and sorry, any CEOs who are in the call right now who may shake and tut their head. Yes, we of course want to make as much money as possible, but we need to make sure that we're doing so in a way that is scalable and structured in a way that we want to achieve. So actually saying, hey, I want to achieve $10 CPA on this keyword, that may be achievable, but if the benchmark in the market is only $2 or $3, then we may need to set those expectations more within those guardrails. And that benchmarking report is a great way to start building those benchmarks. The last step in that process is measure and refine. That's really key in helping you make sure you understand exactly what it is that you need. And also, once that measure and refinement is done, you go back to square one. And that's what the process is. It's not about adjusting the bids, but it's about actually then redefining the benchmarks, redefining the guardrails, and repeating that process accordingly. Last, by no means least, this is how you then start scaling non-brand. It is as simple as expand, prune, and measure. Create the guardrails, expand the keyword list within those guardrails, prune what works, remove what doesn't, that doesn't fit that triangle that's right for you, measure and analyze, and repeat. It is that simple. And I think with about 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes to spare, that is the extent of my presentation. I think there was a question or two in the chat. Ariana, do we have time to answer those?
Absolutely, yes. Thank you, Ben. We do have a question actually in the chat from Kautar. Would it be possible to also give recommendations on campaign and ad group structure to maximize ROI on brand campaigns?
Great question. Oh, who asked that question? Sorry.
Is Kautar. I hope I'm
Carter,
pronouncing it.
that is a great question, Carter. Thank you. So, I can't give specific recommendations on, for example, targets, because as I mentioned, it's about building the triangle and the mosaic that's correct for you and designing that structure that is what is within your business's means, within your business's budget, but also meets the goals that you need, not necessarily that you want. And that's a different conversation for a different day. However, what I can say in terms of group structure, every campaign should have typically brand, non-brand, competitor separated out. So you have your generic terms, but then your competitors that are on the market similar to your application. I would include them as a separate campaign structure. And then from there, a discovery or testing campaign, somewhere that you're testing and identifying new search terms, new words that you are trying to ultimately achieve more from that. And then from there, if you'd like to use some more promotional placements like Apple Ads, Today Tab and Search Tab, great ad placements to expand your repertoire a bit further. Then of course some campaigns specifically for those as well. But that would be the structure that I would recommend. Um,
We do
uh,
from Katerina. We still have time for another one. So maybe if you say
Perfect.
this one, can this tool analyze other conditions? For example, not only target the changes, but the conversion to purchase drop because of product changes or bugs or competitors' new screens. How can we balance between AI and human optimization? Can you show us the example of perfect automation rule for optimization?
Great question as well. Who was that? Katerina, phenomenal question. This tool can our acquire tool can absolutely handle additional criteria, additional conditions, and when it comes to balancing between AI and human automation or human adjustments, it comes down to ultimately how much you want to give up control, if that makes sense. We always encourage human intervention where appropriate, so we don't encourage you necessarily trying to do daily changes against an AI tool, but absolutely analyze the performance criteria every week, maybe 2 weeks, to see, do we want to adjust the targets? Do we want to adjust the logic that the AI is using in order to get the most out of it? As for when there are issues or blips, things going right or things going wrong, we also create automation specifically to monitor and maintain that. So effectively, you have a series of little robots working in the background that say, hey, things are not going the way that we want, or things are going really, really well, and actually we want to shout about it. And rather than you having to do that analysis yourself, you can have our technologies reach out to you and send you emails that say, hey, FYI, you've done really well. Here's the report that proves it. So yeah, to Katerina's question, absolutely possible. And it's about balancing what's right for you as a user or you as a business.